Hi everybody, it's Vanessa here from Alpas. Today we're going to continue our series building a complete web app with Alpas. In this video, we're going to be creating and initializing our project. After we do that, we're going to take a quick tour of some of the key components in an Alpas app to give us a better idea of where to find things moving forward. So let's get started. First, we're going to need to create our project, and we're going to do that from the starter template on GitHub for Alpas. So I have that page pulled up already, and we're just going to say use this template. We're going to name this Fireplace. And create it. Great, so I have my project. Now I'm going to clone it. All right, do an ls here. Got our repo. Okay, so now we need to initialize our app, and we're going to do that using the Alpas command. You have to spell it right, of course. And you pick your package name. We're going to go with dev.alpas.fireplace. Okay, so now our app is initialized. We're going to go ahead and build our front-end dependencies as well, and I'm using yarn, so I'm going to do a yarn install. Okay, and now a yarn dev. Great. So now I'm going to serve the application from the command line. Okay, so it says Fireplace is available. Let's go and check that out. And you can see that our site is running. So all of that is good. Now I'm going to be using IntelliJ, so let's go ahead and open it in IntelliJ now. I'm going to stop this in the command line. Okay, so now I've opened it in IntelliJ. And by the way, if you haven't set up IntelliJ yet to work with Alpas, there is a video on Alpascast telling you how to do that on a Mac. So check that out if you still need to figure out how to do that. Okay, so now we've initialized our project. We've run it. Everything's working great. So we're going to quickly take a look at the project structure of our brand new Alpas application and take a look at some of our key components we're going to be dealing with. So first, let's basically you need to know where the actual code is going to go, and that's going to be source main Kotlin, and then this is where most of your code is going to end up. You've got an env file that got created when you ran Alpas init. It copied from the env example. At some point we're going to be updating this file with our actual values we want to have, but we're not to that point yet. Let's check out configs. So this folder, configs, is where all of your app's custom configuration classes live. Basically, you're going to use custom configuration classes to configure the framework, which helps you avoid having hard-coded config variables like scattered throughout your app. The nice thing is that config classes are strongly typed, they get loaded automatically, and if you want, you can easily override values using environment variables. You can see that in our initialized project, there's already a few config classes in here. We'll take a look at some of these. So we've got auth config. We don't really need to know what's going on in here, but a little sneak peek, you can see it's using a session auth channel. That's going to come in handy when we add auth to our application. If you take a look at the database, you can see that right now there's nothing hooked up to the database because there's nothing in this database config section. And at some point we're going to change that. And then there's a mail config and a queue config. So That's what's in the config folder. Now, I'll close that up. We've got controllers, and that is where your HTTP controllers are going to be. You can see there's already a controller in here, which is called welcome controller. We're not going to dig into this too much yet, but you can see that there's a route, method index, and it's rendering a welcome view. So then we have databases, and inside of there you've got migrations. So this is where your database migrations will live. There's a couple other things in here too, factories and seeds, which we'll get into later as well. Then we have entities. So this is where your database entities are going to live. Entities are really the models of our database. We will be binding them to the relational tables in our database. This is like the ORM section. Alpas actually ships with an entity already, and that is user. As you might imagine, that's a very common entity that a lot of applications are going to need. So that class is already made for you. And if you want to get an idea of what an entity looks like, this is a class that shows you. We've got resources. So you can see you've got a CSS folder, JS folder, template folder. Inside of JS, you've also got a components folder, and that's where like your Vue components are going to go if you're using Vue.js. Then you've got templates. So templates, the files that are going to be in here are your Pebble template files. And then inside of templates, you can also see there's an errors folder. So if we look at that, there's two files in here already. We've got 404 and 500. And based on your name, you can kind of see that they're going to be the views that are rendered when we get a 404 exception or a 500. So actually, I'll show you that right now because it's kind of interesting to see. So I'm going to run this application again since I closed it. Okay, so right now the only route that's defined is the main route. So if I put in anything else, we're going to get a 404. And you can see that Alpas actually has a view already for you, which is awesome. You can customize these and make them whatever you want. The only thing to keep in mind is you need to keep the file names the same because that's how Alpas is actually rendering those for you, is based on the file names. So we'll close resources. And there's a test folder where you can add tests. And that's like the main folder section. Then there's also a few key files that you might have noticed. So start, we already talked about. That's where we actually run the application, is from this file. You're probably not going to touch this file other than to run from it. So you don't need to worry about it too much. We've got the console kernel. So this is where you register service providers for your for when Alpas is run from the command line versus the HTTP kernel. This is where you register service providers that are going to be run when the app is running itself. And we've also got a routes file. When we get a GET request to /, we're going to call the welcome controller. We looked at this earlier. So we saw that the welcome controller is going to call render on something called welcome. And you can see here there's a hint from IntelliJ saying that's the template name. Well, you can see if we go back to resources, templates, there's a welcome.peb here. So this is actually the view that's getting rendered from the welcome controller. Okay, so like I said, the welcome controller is rendering the welcome.peb view. So let's go ahead and make a modification to this Pebble file so you can see that happen. So first, I'm going to open up the terminal and run yarn watch. So that way yarn will be rebuilding the assets and looking for changes. Okay, and then I also need to start the application again. the app is running. So let's go ahead and make a change in that welcome.peb file. So let's see, we've got GitHub. Let's just add into it. Now I'm going to use the, my shortcut for reload changed classes so I don't have to recompile. I have that set up to be Command R. And now if I go back here and refresh this page, you can see I've got my exclamation mark. So that's how that's all happening. We can also see that if we go to the routes file, if I were to comment this out, save this, and then reload. So that didn't actually work. So instead of trying to reload, I'm actually just going to rerun it. Sometimes that happens. Reload works most of the time, but every once in a while you run into a case where it doesn't and you just need to recompile. So now you see we've got a 404, and that's because if we look at our routes file, we don't actually have anything defined. So there are no defined routes. They're all 404s. And that's what's happening there. So we can uncomment that because obviously we would like a route. Let's see if reload will work this time. And it didn't. So let's go ahead and run again. Okay, good. So we've got our Alpas back. So that's all we're going to do today. Gave you a little bit of a tour of the layout of an Alpas application. We created our repo. In the next video, we're going to be adding authentication to our app, and Alpas makes it really easy with a simple command. So we'll see that in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you in the next one.